Africa is often described in pieces, a continent of music, dance, colors, and rhythm. But what holds it all together? What gives these expressions their soul? Is it the beat of the talking drum? The swirl of colors in a masquerade dance? The call of a griot echoing across a Sahel village? Or is it something deeper? From ritual to reality, how African spirituality shapes everyday life. If you walk through a village in Nigeria during a naming ceremony, or witness a Zulu reed dance in South Africa, or watch a priest in Togo consult cowrie shells at dawn, you're not just seeing culture. You're witnessing the heartbeat of African traditional religion in motion. These aren't performances. They are acts of meaning, communication, and power. They mark transitions. They heal wounds. They keep balance between the spiritual and the physical. In African traditional religions, ritual is reality. Every major life event, birth, puberty, marriage, death, is spiritual. Nothing is accidental. Nothing is secular. But when a child is born, a ritual is performed not just to welcome them, but to ask the ancestors who they are and what destiny they carry. At puberty, initiation rites teach boys and girls how to become responsible members of society and what spiritual gifts they hold. A marriage is not just between two people. It's a union between families, ancestors, and spiritual paths. A death is not the end, it's a transition. Funerals are often elaborate, not out of grief alone, but out of honor. The dead are going home to become ancestors. These rites keep the moral code intact. They affirm identity, and they keep the seen world in harmony with the unseen. In Africa, music is more than entertainment, it's spiritual technology. It's how you call the divine, how you enter trance, how you teach history without books. Each drumbeat, each melody, each dance step is coded with meaning. In Vodun, the rhythm determines which spirit arrives. In Yoruba worship, the bata drum is used to speak to the Orishas in rhythm. In Dagara rituals, the xylophone isn't played, it's consulted. Dance isn't just movement, it's invocation, a sacred offering of the body to spirit. Every ritual is a performance, and every performance is a ritual. African art has always been spiritual. It wasn't made for galleries. It was made for gods, for ancestors, for initiation, for healing, for protection. Masks aren't decorations. They're vessels for spirits. When worn, they transform the wearer into something more. The sculptures of deities are not idols. They are dwellings, spiritual homes carved from wood or cast in bronze. The symbols woven into Kent cloth or painted on walls aren't aesthetic. They are coded messages, visible prayers. Everything has a function. Everything has a voice. In the worldview of African traditional religions, illness is rarely just physical. A headache may be caused by heat, but it may also be caused by a spiritual imbalance or an ancestral warning or a broken taboo. Traditional healers, known as Babalawos, Sangomas, diviners, or Ngangas, do more than treat symptoms. They are herbalists, psychologists, spiritual counselors, astrologers, dream interpreters, community advisors. They work with plants, rituals, chants, bones, and symbols, but also with ancestral insight and divination systems. In the Yoruba tradition, the Ifa oracle offers detailed diagnoses that blend spiritual insight with practical remedy. In the Shona tradition of Zimbabwe, healing often includes music, trance, and consultation with ancestor spirits. Health is not the absence of disease. Health is the presence of balance. Not every ritual is grand. Many are simple, daily acts that tie people to the sacred. A libation before meals, not just for nourishment but to feed the ancestors. A red cloth tied to a tree, a sign of sacred presence. A prayer whispered before planting seeds, asking the earth to bless the harvest. Even in modern cities, you'll find shrines tucked into corners, incense burning near doorways, salt placed at thresholds, symbols drawn on walls. Because African traditional religions are not confined to temples. They live in kitchens, in streets, in gardens, in breath. In Africa, spirituality is not something you do on a specific day. It's how you live. It's in the way you greet your elders, the way you bury your dead, the way you sing, love, eat, and remember. Rituals, music, art, and medicine, these are not isolated practices. They are threads in a sacred fabric that has clothed Africa for millennia. And despite the storms of colonization, suppression, and globalization, that fabric still holds. The survival of spirit, African religions in the modern world. If you thought African traditional religions were buried by time, think again. They are still here. Not hidden in the shadows, but standing in plain sight, evolved, disguised, and thriving. Colonialism tried to erase them. Missionaries called them pagan. Governments banned their rituals. But the spirit, the ancestral soul of Africa, refused to die. In fact, it adapted, diffused. It rose from the ashes, stronger, wiser, and more complex than ever. Across Africa and the diaspora, African traditional religions have not disappeared. They've blended with other faiths to create new spiritual systems. In Nigeria, many Christians still pour libations and wear protective charms under their Sunday clothes. In Benin, people might attend Mass in the morning and a Vodun ceremony in the evening. In Senegal, Sufi Islam incorporates local beliefs in spirits and ancestral intercession. In South Africa, Zionist churches mix Christian scripture with African prophecy, water healing, and sacred dance. And across the Caribbean and the Americas, enslaved Africans carried their beliefs through blood and rhythm. Santeria in Cuba, Vodou in Haiti, Candomblé in Brazil. What the world called superstition was actually resistance. What they called idolatry was identity. And what they feared as savage was really survival in disguise. In today's Africa, the power of traditional spirituality isn't just in ceremony, it's in resistance. African traditional religions offer a framework for a justice rooted in community and balance, a respect for women through female deities and matriarchal traditions, environmental ethics where harming the earth is a spiritual crime, a collective memory where healing historical trauma requires ancestral reconciliation. Movements like Afrocentric education, Pan-Africanism, and even climate activism have all drawn from indigenous African beliefs. From the protectors of sacred forests in Uganda, to Ghanaian artists invoking the Sankofa bird to reclaim forgotten wisdom, to Nigerian activists calling on Ogun and Oya to stand against corruption, African spirituality has become a moral compass, one rooted not in conquest but in harmony. Look closer, African spirituality is back in the spotlight. In music, artists like Burna Boy, Tems, and Angelique Kidjo invoke ancestral themes and gods in their lyrics. In film, Hollywood has borrowed heavily from African mythologies. Just look at Wakanda's cosmology in Black Panther. In fashion, attire, kente, cowrie shells, and tribal markings are no longer backward. They're bold statements of pride. Writers like Chinua Achebe, Wole Soyinka, and Ben Okri have long used African spirituality as narrative backbone. And younger generations? They're using podcasts, TikTok, documentaries, and Instagram to reclaim the sacred, sharing rituals, decoding symbols, and calling out misconceptions. What was once hidden is now being celebrated. What was once demonized is now being decolonized. African traditional religions didn't just survive in Africa. They crossed oceans and chains. But even in bondage they endured. In Brazil, the deities of Yoruba land live on as orixás, honored with music and dance. In Haiti, Vodou blends African spirits with Catholic saints, a system of hidden resistance that once defeated Napoleon's army. In Cuba, Santeria reclaims African identity through ritual, music, and trance. In the United States, Many African Americans are turning to Ifa, Vodun, and Kemetic science to rebuild the cultural lineage that was stolen. These are not fads. They're homecomings. Spiritual healing after centuries of erasure. In a world spinning faster every day, many Africans are returning to the old ways for new wisdom. Not to live in the past, but to find balance in the present. Cities like Accra, Lagos, and Nairobi now host workshops on ancestral healing and ritual art. The traditional healers are being integrated into national health strategies in countries like Ghana and South Africa. Universities across Africa are offering degrees in indigenous philosophy and religion. Young creators are digitizing folk tales, translating chants into global languages, and creating apps for divination systems like Ifa. Because even as the world modernizes, the sacred doesn't disappear. It adapts. African traditional religions were never broken. They were only bent. And now they are rising again. In whispers and rhythms, in protest and poetry, in rituals and retweets. They're not just surviving. They're leading a spiritual renaissance. A remembering of what the world tried to make us forget. This is more than history. It's a spiritual homecoming. We've walked a long road in this story, from the ancestral altars to the colonizer's sword, from whispers in the forest to music on global stages. And now we stand here, at a crossroads. Will we let the sacred knowledge fade with the elders? Will we reduce our gods to museum labels and academic footnotes? Or will we remember, reclaim, restore? Because this isn't just about religion. It's about soul, about dignity, about the right to know where we come from, and to walk proudly with the wisdom of our ancestors. To those watching, wherever you are in the world, the story of African traditional religions isn't a story of the past. It's a living legacy, and you are part of it. Learn about your roots. Read the stories of your ancestors. Support the voices reclaiming the sacred. Challenge the myths and speak the truth. Keep the flame alive. Because when you honor the spirit, you honor the future. This is not the end of the story. It's just the beginning.